After 3 years spent analyzing forgotten excavation records, Emma Culligan discovered the one pattern everyone had missed, and it proves the $85 million shaft on Oak Island was never a natural collapse. For decades, experts dismissed it and researchers accepted the easy answer. But Emma checked the numbers no one else had properly verified. She compared wall angles, depth readings, and soil density patterns. When she laid them side by side, the variations weren't random, so I scanned the artifacts, and they are both quite clean irons. They're actually very similar in composition. It was really clean, really controlled composition. I've never seen that before. They grouped together and repeated at consistent intervals, something nature simply doesn't do underground. Nature produces chaos. But this was pattern. And pattern means intention. Someone built this shaft to protect something below, and here's what Emma found that made the natural collapse theory fall apart. The numbers no one had checked for years: sinkholes form, ground shifts, water moves underground, case closed. But the excavation records told a different story that nobody had read carefully enough. There's a lot of potential for other works to be in the area. Offset chambers and the tunnel at the 95-foot mark. Oh, for sure. The data had been there all along, buried in handwritten notes and faded measurements. Different teams had described the same underground layers behaving in completely opposite ways. One account claimed the soil loosened as they dug deeper. Another insisted resistance increased sharply at that very same depth. Both cannot be true unless something else was influencing the structure from within. These weren't minor discrepancies. They were fundamental contradictions that should have raised alarms decades ago. Those inconsistencies were summarized, archived, and quietly ignored for decades. Researchers moved on to other theories. Historians accepted the easy explanation because it required no further investigation. Emma didn't ignore them. She followed them wherever they led. When Emma overlaid the data, she stopped scrolling. The pattern wasn't random. It was deliberate. The first major problem with the natural collapse theory is the shape of the shaft itself. True sinkholes widen as they descend. Gravity pulls material downward. Water erodes the edges and the void expands unpredictably in every direction. This shaft does none of that. It stays narrow and controlled throughout its entire depth. The walls remain stable far deeper than they should, surviving soil transitions where collapse typically accelerates dramatically. The vertical alignment is remarkably precise. Small deviations occur exactly where stress adjustment would be required, not where random failure would occur. Okay, so what are we looking at? What is that? Could have been a collapsed timber shaft. That's what it looks like to me. That's what on either side. You have this piece right here. It looks like a beam. Wall angles stay consistent through sand, clay, and gravel, materials that respond very differently under pressure. Nature doesn't make those kinds of compromises. Intentional construction does. The geometric proof. Emma compared these measurements against known engineered excavations from pre-industrial sites around the world: early mining pits, defensive shafts, concealed access wells. The tolerances matched. The ratios matched. Even the way the shaft compensates for load at specific depths mirrors techniques used centuries ago to prevent inward collapse. A natural formation might accidentally resemble one engineered trait, not an entire system of them working together. That level of precision only makes sense if something below was worth protecting for centuries. Then there's the absence of widening. Natural collapses become more chaotic with depth as instability compounds. This shaft doesn't. Its dimensions only change when they need to, and when they do, the changes are calculated and precise. Small expansions appear exactly at stress points, as if pressure relief had been planned in advance by someone who understood the forces involved. As investigators went deeper, subtle markings appeared along the walls. Not obvious tool marks, just faint striations repeating in consistent directions. At first glance, they could be dismissed as water erosion. But water doesn't carve rhythmically. These marks repeat at regular intervals, stopping and starting in ways erosion simply never does. Emma examined the spacing around the circumference of the shaft walls. The distance between each set of striations was nearly identical, eliminating natural abrasion entirely as an explanation. The pattern matches the working width of historical excavation tools designed to scrape, compact, and shape earth long before mechanized drilling existed. Water moves in curves and channels following the path of least resistance. These marks move with purpose: straight pulls, even pressure, controlled strokes. They appear only where wall composition changes, exactly where a human operator would need to adjust technique. Below those zones, the markings vanish completely, replaced by smooth, compressed surfaces that look finished rather than eroded. Someone carved this shaft deliberately, and they knew exactly what they were doing every step of the way. The engineered seal. The excavation reaches a dense clay layer that shouldn't exist in that form under normal geological conditions. It isn't scattered or blended with surrounding material. It arrives cleanly, holds uniform thickness throughout, and ends just as deliberately as it began. In nature, clay accumulates unevenly over time, shaped by random pressure and water flow. It doesn't compress into a controlled band with defined boundaries. But this layer does exactly that. It behaves less like sediment and more like a seal, something placed intentionally to regulate pressure and isolate what lies beneath. If there's anything to be found in this shaft, it might be there. I think it's worth running a metal detector. Yes. The lab results came back and suddenly the comfortable explanation died. The clay shows unmistakable signs of being compressed before burial. Pressure was applied while the material was still pliable and workable. Then it was sealed beneath stable layers that locked it permanently in place. Water can relocate clay over time, but it cannot evenly compress it, lock it into place, and cap it without disturbing everything around it. Only human intervention explains this formation. This clay functions like a gasket, absorbing and redistributing force instead of collapsing under pressure. Above the layer, soil remains unstable and reactive to moisture. Below it, the walls become secure and moisture behaves predictably within controlled parameters. Whoever placed this layer understood exactly how water would move through the shaft long after construction finished. They weren't simply digging a hole in the ground. They were engineering a barrier designed to last generations without maintenance. That kind of foresight only exists when something beneath requires permanent protection from discovery. The water management system. The shaft constantly takes on water from rainfall, groundwater seepage, and seasonal pressure shifts throughout the year. But there's no chaos in how it responds. No sudden surges or violent pressure spikes that would destabilize the structure. Water levels fluctuate within a narrow, predictable range regardless of external conditions. Even during severe storms that overwhelm nearby test holes and flood other excavations, this shaft responds calmly and maintains its integrity. Flow measurements reveal something extraordinary that defies natural explanation. Water entering the shaft doesn't linger or accumulate. It moves sideways through concealed pathways rather than pooling vertically as physics would normally dictate. When mapped carefully, multiple exits feed into shared channels that work together as an integrated system. Nature disperses water unpredictably through random cracks and fissures. This system gathers, directs, and releases water with clear purpose, mirroring early engineered water management designed to control flow rather than block it entirely. Certain zones remain consistently dry when surrounding areas experience significant moisture spikes. That selective dryness means protected spaces, regions intentionally shielded from water exposure by careful design. Drainage like this only exists when something nearby absolutely cannot get wet. Then comes the comparison that reframes everything investigators thought they knew. When Emma overlays depth markers from the $85 million shaft with historical records from the original money pit, the alignments are impossible to dismiss as coincidence. Critical depths match precisely. Resistance layers appear at nearly identical intervals in both structures. Both shafts show collapse zones that appear intentional, engineered weak points designed to absorb stress, redirect pressure, or mislead excavators into dead ends. That alignment changed everything. This wasn't a separate collapse. It was part of the same underground system. Soil reinforcement patterns deepen the connection between the two sites. Both structures rely on remarkably similar combinations of compacted clay, layered fill, and strategic stone placement. These techniques don't appear randomly across unrelated sites formed by chance. They reflect shared knowledge, shared planning, and possibly the same builders working from a unified design. The deception layer. The $85 million shaft isn't merely another collapse that happened to occur nearby. It's a companion structure, not a treasure pit itself, but a supporting element within a larger integrated network designed to divert water, mislead intruders, and protect something hidden much deeper underground. Understanding this changes everything about how Oak Island should be investigated going forward. The misdirection reveals itself clearly in the upper layers. Near the surface, everything looks convincingly wrong to anyone investigating: loose fill, broken alignment, chaotic layering, irregular voids scattered throughout. Walls unstable enough to make experienced diggers call it a natural collapse and walk away without investigating further, but that disorder exists only where it needs to be seen. It's a facade designed to discourage exactly the kind of deep investigation that would reveal the truth. As excavation moves deeper past the surface chaos, the disorder abruptly ends. Layers straighten dramatically. Wall density increases substantially. Materials shift from loose and reactive to compacted and cooperative. The transition is impossibly sharp to occur naturally. Natural collapses don't correct themselves. Once instability begins underground, it compounds and spreads. Here, instability is clearly staged: loose fill above where diggers would encounter it first, solid structure below where it actually matters. The inversion is theatrical, not geological. Multiple excavation attempts throughout history stopped at nearly identical depths, citing instability as the reason to abandon their efforts. The disguise worked perfectly for over a century. Deeper still, clusters of stone appear at precise intervals, concentrated exactly where structural stress would naturally build over time. Each cluster functions as a load-bearing buffer, redirecting stress away from vulnerable sections. Emma's mapping reveals patterns matching early underground support methods used before timber frames existed. These systems redirect force sideways, allowing the shaft to flex rather than fracture. The shaft descends far deeper than anyone anticipated, deeper than historical records claim was achievable. Right now, we're at 87 feet from the top. So, we've gone down about 4 feet roughly. Right. But how far is that down there? It's not very much further. I'll just open this up. This little hatch here so give us a better idea. Stratigraphic data places construction beneath layers associated with early colonial presence. This shaft wasn't dug by people reacting to Oak Island after their arrival. It was dug by people who arrived knowing exactly what they intended to build and how to build it. They executed a sophisticated plan requiring hydrology control, load redistribution, and staged collapse design, engineering knowledge that wasn't common anywhere in colonial Nova Scotia or the surrounding regions during that era. The shield. Nothing about this shaft suggests trial and error or amateur construction. The deception near the surface, the intelligence below, the unexpected depth, all of it points to foreknowledge and meticulous planning. the builders anticipated curiosity from future generations. They anticipated greed driving people to dig. They anticipated abandonment when searchers gave up in frustration. And they designed the entire system to outlast all of it for centuries to come. The shaft's entrance sits offset from expected treasure routes, deliberately misaligned from surface markers that usually guide excavation attempts. Anyone following historical clues and traditional treasure hunting methods would walk right past it without a second glance. That placement removes the shaft from the mental map of discovery entirely, allowing it to exist quietly in plain sight while attention stayed fixed elsewhere on more obvious targets. With intent firmly established by the mounting evidence, the function becomes unmistakable. The shaft doesn't lead forward toward treasure. It absorbs force. It redirects stress away from critical areas. It takes damage so something else deeper in the network doesn't have to. Collapse zones within the shaft don't endanger the deeper system. They actively protect it. When pressure builds from above, the shaft fails inward in controlled ways, pulling force toward itself and away from adjacent underground spaces. Pressure traps function as sacrificial points throughout, giving way long before stress can migrate into the protected zones. Every collapse blamed on bad luck or unstable soil conditions turns out to be a successful defensive response, doing exactly what it was originally designed to do. This shaft isn't a passage to treasure. It's a shield protecting one. Engineering this sophisticated doesn't protect loose coins or buried silverware. It protects something irreplaceable: Templar archives, colonial treasury reserves, or artifacts someone believed were worth dying for. The precision, the foresight, the sheer resources required to build this system suggests the prize isn't just valuable in monetary terms. It's singular and unique in human history. Something that couldn't be moved safely, couldn't be risked to exposure, and couldn't be left unguarded for even a single generation. Whatever lies beneath the $85 million shaft was worth more than the shaft itself ever cost to construct. And after 3 centuries of failed excavations and frustrated treasure hunters turning away in defeat, it's very likely still there, waiting to be found. Could the $85 million shaft be protecting the same treasure the original money pit was designed to guard? Is Emma Culligan's groundbreaking analysis the key to finally locating the real vault that has eluded searchers for generations? And if this shaft is just the shield, as all evidence now suggests, where exactly is the core it's been protecting all along? The answers might finally be within reach, but only if researchers follow where Emma's data leads instead of where tradition says to look. Let us know your theory in the comments section below. Make sure to like and subscribe for more Oak Island revelations.